how do you feel about the statistic that only 4 treatments for childhood cancer have been FDA approved in the last 30 years?
4 in 1 year?
In 30 years.
Let's do this. Let's hit the road.
My name is Nita Haney, and my son, Patrick, had ALL when he was 20 months old.
I am Paul Bellinger. I am 50 years old. I am Aaron Bellinger's dad. He came over, we brought him to the emergency room, and that's when they did the MRI, CAT scan, or whatever it is they do, and that's when they discovered the tumor that was on his spine.
My name is Matt Schaefer. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at Children's New Orleans. So my nephew's name is Malachi. He was diagnosed on January 14th of 2007 with AML leukemia.
He was so gifted, he was so outgoing, he was so ambitious. He wanted to study politics, he was going to be entering law school. Here we are in 2017, 2018, and you don't, doctors are guessing.
I lost my child, and I would never want anybody to go through that. Because not only did we go through all of the chemo, and then he relapsed, and we had to have a bone marrow transplant, all the things that we went through for that, and then we still lost him. I mean, I lost my child. He lost his life. For me to sit here and talk about him now is because of the person he was, even though he only lived to be 6 years old.
Malachi's journey, he was joyful through almost all of it, and that spread around to everyone. Right? Everyone who he interacted with got to experience that and be reminded that maybe their day wasn't so bad. Right? Maybe they didn't have a reason to, be as down as they might have been otherwise. Because, look at this little boy who's running up and down the hallway where everybody's having to tell him to slow down because he's got 5 lines, right, and he's carrying his IV pole, and remind that just get up and do your best and try to be as kind and as nice and as joyful as you can be.
Okay, so what form of pediatric cancer did you combat?
Neuroblastoma, which is some nerve, and it was wrapped around my spinal cord.
We thought it was just going to be like a regular infection, but they were like, oh, like you have Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it kind of like flipped my world upside down, because like, what do 15-year-olds think about like how you look, what boys will think, what other people will think?
Sat down and I had just gotten a plate of fried catfish, and that is my favorite food, and it is fantastic at the hospital, and I was so excited taking one bite, and I heard the words leukemia.
When you're diagnosed, or when your child is diagnosed at that age, it's kind of like, we know this isn't perfect and it might cause issues later, but it's either do this now or they die. But obviously when you grow up and you're like, well, I have all these other problems, it needs to be better, so you don't kind of have to make that rock and a hard place choice.
And so it can really get to a point where you're like, man, I feel like I'm the only one going through this. And it, you're not though. And it's hard to remember that in the moment, but there are little reminders like that that make it easier.
I think that people should definitely take into account that it's not just a week, it's like a lifetime thing. Mm-hmm. If you're truly there for someone, you need to be there for them the whole time, whether it's like 5 years or 5 months.
Yeah, I fight for 5 for our future. I think kids are the reason that we do a lot of things. I had no idea that it was 1 in 5 that don't make it. I didn't know that. But it's so hard because so many of the friendships I've made I've lost because they're not here. And that 1 in 5 number seems about right.
I mean, obviously, because if it wasn't for whoever fought before me, I wouldn't be alive. There should never be a child, especially when they're the most vulnerable, that have any that pass away for something because of not enough funding or not enough research.
Because nobody should have to bury their child. Nobody should have to say goodbye to their child when he's 6 years old or 14 years old or 10 years old.
I personally want all the children to survive because I hope that like every child that has cancer could turn out like I did. I was lucky enough to survive and live a normal, healthy life, and I would want that for my kid, and I would want that for every other kid that has cancer.